Howdy, howdy. Can you believe it? We've made it to 2021. You've just tuned in with us once again to Cyberhuman Frontiers. And I've heard a lot of people talking about, wow, 2020 is over. It's going to be better this year. And I think about things a lot, and I say to myself, well, what is it fundamentally that separates 2020 from 2021? It's a numerical situation. So just because the calendar date shifted over doesn't mean that, well, I can hope for whatever, you can hope for whatever you want. It doesn't mean anything really one way or the other, just because it's 2021 versus 2020. Good evening, Powder. How are you? Good to see you out there. So I like to hope and think and conjure and be visionary about a future that's, got all sorts of wonderful, advantageous things in it. But there isn't anything fundamentally different unless actual factors change, then there isn't anything fundamentally that makes 2021 automatically different, better, or worse than 2020. So it could be anything in my rational mind. Now, in my creative, hopeful, and imaginative mind, yeah, wow. 2020 was a tough go for a lot of people. So, TMC, what do you think about that? I've been hearing a lot of people talking about, wow, thank goodness that's over, and so it's 2021. Everything is going to be great. I don't know, maybe not. It depends on actual real world factors.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see in the next couple of weeks. Next couple of weeks, I think, is going to set tempo for.
Yep.
For the next year or many.
Yep.
What we're going to see in the next few weeks. So.
Yep. And for those of you that just follow the tech and you don't follow the politics and all the economics, there's a whole lot there to pay attention to over the next few weeks. So yeah, true that. I agree, man. Here we are at the beginning of this new set of Cyberhuman Frontiers episodes that we're going to be bringing to you. And we're always talking about what the cutting edge is and relating it to how it could or maybe does matter to us. We get into all kinds of things. For those of us who will just be joining as of, somewhere around now or going forward, we explore things like quantum physics. We explore things like recombinant DNA and gene splicing. We explore things like 5G technology and new patented devices that will be available and you'll be seeing coming to a store near you at the consumer level. We check out all this stuff and we bring it, we illustrate, we show patents, designs, intent. We look at the financing, the companies that are behind a lot of it. And the sense is that it really does all relate. It's kind of all sort of, it can work synergistically. And so, excuse me. So the titling for the episode tonight is The Future. Transhuman versus human. Is it exciting? Does it matter? Does it even register when we think of it? Because it's when we hear that word transhuman, we're thinking that's not us. I mean, after all, we're humans, I mean, I got my dog and my kids and my house and my car and all that. Well, there is a lot going on, and if you've been following us for the last many months now, you'll know that there is. And at some point, we will get our past episodes back up onto the channel, and probably a few other channels, a few other streaming platforms coming forward as we go down the road here. But we start with that phrase, cyberhuman, transhuman, human. Are there advantages or disadvantages to each? So the advantage of being a human, which is what we all know that we are, and we are fundamentally built that way. That's kind of our birthright to be humans. It's organic. It is uniquely adapted to be in the natural world that we live in. And of course, by that natural world, that would encompass family, work, the psychological aspects of happiness and health and emotions, all that human stuff. That's all part of being a real human. When we broach into the idea of transhuman, is there anything advantageous there? Well, on the face of it, it could extend our reach into frontiers that as mere natural humans, we can't go. Right, TMC? I mean, it does extend. We can use, it is being used to extend our conscious reach out there. So it's kind of a question of how far it goes and whether we know where it's going. So that's, we're at some point we're going to be grappling with this. And the reason why is because we are fundamentally at our core just real, regular humans. And where technology and engineering and the advances, significant advances in material science are taking us is into a place where some of the parts of what a human is could become like unnecessary or could be augmented so significantly that the original organic part might become irrelevant. And in the process of that metamorphosis, I will call it, we would want to be mindful as to whether we are preserving our fundamental nature as we advance. Any thoughts, TMC, I can blabber on forever about this stuff, but do you want to weigh in on this? Because I want to go through the questions that I have in our outline for the show and just go back and forth a little bit.
Yeah, I think that this transformation is inevitable. And I think we're supposed to resist it. And I think we're supposed to preserve whatever it means to be human through this process. And that's going to mean something different for everybody. And in the aggregate, it's going to mean something different nation to nation, culture to culture. And preserving cultures too, by the way, preserving the natural differences between people, because we're not all the same, right? To that point, that more or less is another exemplary illustration of that point, whereby we're moving into this space that is going to create an opportunity for a technocracy to sort of overshadow all forms of government and then homogenize the species, make everybody in the species the same through the implementation and the use of technology. And that is going to erode away and compete with our humanity. And our humanity starts, in my opinion, with our individuality. And then that scales up to our unique cultures and our own societies, which look very different.
Do you find it necessary to invoke anything beyond the earthly level of humans, such as the creator or the prime mover or the consciousness of the universe, or the fabric of which we probably are part? Is it necessary to bring that into the discussion to help to base it or to ground oneself in a
so.
Okay.
So God, creator, universal consciousness, right? Cosmic law, the universal energy field, universal information field, however you want to illustrate it, describe it in your own way. That's part of it's part of what we are. It's part of what we communicate with. It's the sixth sense, so to speak. It's just a representation of it. And technology is going to provide a way for man to insert itself in between your unique individual connection with the supernatural, with God, with the universal information field, with the universal energy field, with the grand universal singular consciousness, however you want that to look like.
I agree. It really can. Go on.
That's where technology is taking us, and that's that homogenization through the technocratic, technotronic overshadowing over all nation states. That's what's going to be done, is this insertion of man in between each individual's ability to commune spiritually.
That doesn't necessitate that there's going to be homogenization, though. Just being able to have, the gateway, shall we say, if it were a gateway for each individual human to be able to extend their awareness, that would not be homogenizing. An individual's individuality could be preserved.
It depends how the technology is implemented.
Right.
It could enhance that. It could enhance an individual's ability to commune, where the subtle signals and the subtle communications that occur through prayer, for example, could theoretically be amplified. And if it was truly left as an open platform, something that we build to allow for an amplified experience of what's already occurring, and not adulterate it, not pervert it, not synthesize it, not plasticize it, not
attenuate it,
of it,
not attenuate it or mute it or replace it, but amplify it. Yes,
amplify what is, and not insert man in between. We potentially have the ability to utilize technology in ways that will open up our consciousness, kind of like what I think we're speculating or pontificating about earlier, where's our consciousness going? And that ultimately, that is the question. That's the underlying question, because the human mind at this point is the final frontier in our dimension.
It is. We had technology, 100 years ago, where we went from transportation on a horse to transportation in a car. That is unarguably a technological advance. I'm not so sure the horse was that happy about it, but we advanced nevertheless. That was not, that's just a tool. That's external to the human. The big difference now is we discuss things that are going to be internal, on board, in your body, in your brain. And we'll go through this stuff again. We're going to keep touching on these points, but we have already in other episodes. It literally illustrated some of this stuff. It's just there. So that is a whole different arena. And that, I think, is where I know that we don't have adequate control. We don't have adequate facility to be able to control this stuff. We do not have a full awareness. We don't even have, and that's all of us. It's nobody's fault. It's hard to keep up with this stuff. We don't have a full awareness of exactly how far that can get into us. And so the diagram that you have up there right now is literally, there are going to be, and they've already done a lot of this stuff. So bringing on board little devices, and these are nano-sized particles that are, by the look of what's in illustration number 4, it looks like that is either a photonic activation or electromagnetic. I can't tell which it is from that. So is that EM or is it light? That neuron that's right, it says right in on component 4.
It's both. This platform is one of many that DARPA is working on as a package, and this company is working on a system that delivers magnetic nanoparticles that can be doped with genetic modification information. So nanotech, synthetic RNA type nanotech that's attached to the magnetic nanoparticles that are also at the nanoscale, so that they can be steered up to, through, past the blood-brain barrier into the brain next to specific types of neurons. They can pick which ones they want,
Right.
and then deposit the genetic information to then modify the neurons in the brain to then be responsive to things like light or sound or electricity or chemicals.
So the diagram is beautiful. This is diagram number 1 in the lower left. This is an injectable, and I have a tab up regarding those injectables. So injecting these particles, they're smart particles. I'm going to just temporarily call them smart particles. Those things are steered, when you go up to picture number 2, to specific neurons in the brain. And then they begin reading. They begin reading, and I would imagine that what they're going to do is they're going to broadcast what they read out to an outboard computer device for storage, analysis, and whatever type of an input they're going to try to send back. So that's number 3. Number 4 is to write to that brain neuron. Now, this could really be good. It literally, if there were a skill, a particular type of skill, I mentioned horses. If it was riding a horse, maybe it's golfing, or maybe it's some very complex muscular coordination required to do something like playing a piano. I don't know. It includes all sorts of things. Could be that can literally be written into some spare neurons in your brain. And we do have some extra real estate in there that can be commandeered for these purposes. And then we get to item number 5, which I'm going to leave for you to explain, because they're talking about removing those after they have, okay, yeah, go. You got
so
it.
The part of the requirements from DARPA is to have a system that you can inject or insert magnetic nanoparticles, drop off a payload in the brain or wherever. This program's for the brain, but if they can do it in the brain, then they can do it to any organ or any part of the nervous system or into the muscles or whatever. And then when they're done, be able to remove the magnetic nanoparticles,
right,
so that you don't have anything left in the system anymore
after the job is done.
Yeah. Right. So the benefit to this platform is not only do you get the genetic manipulation payload where you want it to permanently alter, and they'll argue it's temporary because they have other programs that work they interleave together where you can genetically modify and then remodify back to a normal state again. But basically, you drop off a genetic payload, have it do what it's supposed to do, modify the genome, and then the delivery vehicle, which is the magnetic nanoparticles that are moved around with the use of electromagnetic fields, are then steered out back into the bloodstream and then processed out through, for example, urination, defecation,
right,
things like that.
So comments out in the chat. Don't be scared. It sounds scary, but the real thing to be afraid of, I'm very sympathetic. We're all very sympathetic. I am, and I know TMC is too, with how this stuff sounds daunting, threatening, etc. But the thing to really be scared of is that this technology is advancing forward very, very quickly, and the real scare would be not to know anything about it. So this is where it literally becomes less scary rather than more scary. It's just a little bit of a shock to learn about some of this, but stay with us. Stay with us. It's going to be okay.
So just to kind of, I guess, round that out a little bit, the applications of this are beyond just brain-computer interfaces. If you can effectively deliver genetic payloads to specific target sites in the body and have them work as advertised, then the implications for medical therapies are also available. I mean, those things also would exist with these platforms.
Huge benefit, huge potential benefit.
Yeah. And so it goes back to what we were saying earlier as it relates to how are these technologies going to be implemented. And if it's done benevolently, which we have not seen a very good track record of, but if it is done benevolently, there stands opportunity for a great deal of correction of the issues that have been thrust upon the human species over the last 50 to 100 years.
The deal is the technology just comes. It just comes. It has a lousy track record for benevolence because the people it's been done for profit and for control by companies and organizations and institutions that have the bankroll big enough to do this stuff. So it's advanced, very fancy laboratories and highly specialized equipment costs money. And at our level, we wouldn't be able to afford that. Yet the irony of it is that somehow all the bills get paid to those institutions and whoever else it is, the large companies, basically by people like us. So we are, in a roundabout manner, financing everything that they do. It's the working class that pays all the bills. That's where all the money comes from. So it's kind of ironic how there's no accountability. After they somehow, by circumventatory means, manage to get the money for big grants, etc., shouldn't they have some total transparency and total accountability back to us for exactly what they're doing and why?
This is indicative of the track record that I mentioned before. If the view of the general public is that of a commodity, is that of livestock, is that of something that is an asset that can be utilized any way seen fit, even if it means destruction, to achieve some goal, then the motives and the intent and the spawn or the origination of where the energy resources are coming from, and then subsequently how they're used, and then the fruits of that energy being consumed, what you get out of it not being reciprocated back. The common underlying theme is that the general public, if you will, where most of the energy is drawn from, is looked at as a resource, as a separate species, if you will, as livestock, which is
you're segueing. You're segueing beautifully into something that I want to play a little bit of.
Sure, let's go.
Okay. I did not, and I usually do this, but I didn't at the beginning of our show because I was just so excited about the first show of the new year. Yay! But if you would just indulge me for a moment. Our community guidelines disclaimer is that the points of view and purpose of this video is not to incite fear, violence, harass, or bully in any way, but rather to share opinions and thoughts with other like-minded individuals curious about the subject to encourage conversation and awareness. The opinions expressed on this stream belong solely to the person espousing them and are not an expression of the channel Cyberhuman Frontiers. This video does not claim to give medical, legal, political, or financial advice. And pursuant to the Copyright Act of 1976, this video and our YouTube channel in general may contain certain copyrighted works that were not specifically authorized to be used by the copyright holders, but which we believe in good faith and in accordance with the Copyright Act of 1976 are protected by federal law and the fair use doctrine for one or more of the reasons noted above. Thank you for letting me read that to you. And to that point, we have a very interesting lady who has a website called the Solari Report, and her name is Catherine Austin Fitz. And I would like to thank Catherine Austin Fitz in advance for her expected permission and allowance for us to play a little bit of her very interesting analysis of the state of our culture and the position that we, as I call us all, the regular people, are in relation to some others. And I believe that she calls some of the others Mr. Globalist or something like that. So we'll play a few minutes and then talk. And it's interesting. And here we go. Let me get it up here. And make sure that the audio is working. Got to mute myself. Okay. All right. So here you have Catherine Austin Fitz. Okay. And I would encourage you to seek out the Solari report. She seems to be a rather intelligent lady. Here we go.
So we have the Mr. Global at the top. We have the database and software systems using artificial intelligence. A very important part of this now is the satellite system that's being.
You're muted. You're muted. Indigo.
I muted myself.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so she's starting it out at the, thank you. I muted myself so I wouldn't echo. Anyway, she's drawing out the general power layout right here, which is we have certain people at the top who are in control of the purse strings of things, and she starts drilling right down to the lower levels. So that's what she's talking about, is the lay of the land, if you will, on how everything happens on this planet. And she's drawing a very comprehensive diagram.
Put up in the orbital platform. And using telecommunications and digital technology, you have the ability 24/7 to track and monitor both your humans and your robots. And the question for Mr. Global is, what's more efficient? If I can do everything with robots, then what do I do with the humans? I don't need them anymore.
So you're all well aware that with your smartphone that you have there, of course, for your safety, it's connected to the location network, the GPS system. And of course, there are indeed devices on board inside that smartphone, which will monitor both visually and audibly what's going on, as well as where you are, and many other sensors that we've featured in previous episodes. So that's real. That exists, okay? Can monitor and track everybody. And there's something like, I don't know, like 5 billion out of all 8 billion of us that have a phone. So, and those phones are all, equipped with those devices. So here she goes.
I want to show something real quick.
Okay, go.
Before you go, because I want to set the tone a little bit. We moved in on this interview, and she's done a pretty good job up to this point, lining out all the different pieces that are associated with getting to the point where she's comparing humans and robots, and Mr. Global having a connection to the robots and to the people at the same time, using software and AI and the cloud as an interface to be able to look and manage and steer and control both humans and robots at the same time. And so people are probably going to think, okay, well, that robots aren't there yet. Well, I want to show you this. And
look at those things.
I can't play the music, but what I want you to see is this is where robots. This is what they're telling us that robots can do.
And that's all physical. That's all physical. Imagine if you.
So I play the sound there for a minute just to illustrate that it's all done in time, in timing, and you can find stuff on Twitter that shows the drone acrobatics that are in China, where they're using lots and lots and lots and lots of drones, all in coordination, which is representative of drone swarms, which is stuff that, again, DARPA works on.
Flying in formation.
Yeah, just bear in mind, these robots are not tethered. So right. when she's talking about the satellite grid, there's an implication there of that being the redundant piece, whereby you're not going to be able to tear that down. Cell towers theoretically could go down during periods of quote unquote crisis, but satellites will not. And so she makes reference in there that there's this blending of commercial and military and these networks that are being set up that are going to fuse the banking institutions in with groups like Bezos and Amazon and Microsoft. And she talks about the contracts that Amazon has with the 17 or 18 intelligence agencies, and the JEDI contract that was going to go to Microsoft, but I think has been put on hold. And these are the major government/military architectures that are the blending of the satellite hardware as well as with the new 5G, 6G type stuff that's coming online that will fuse together cloud infrastructure, the hardware, to ultimately allow for wireless interactivity with robotics and with humans, networking the humans as well. So,
and isn't that a little bit of a surprise that a company like Amazon, that just a short 10 years ago we thought was where you'd buy, objects, consumables, that type of thing, and they are involved very heavily in this system now. And they're actually, I believe that they're a subcontractor of the defense, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, CIA, and then the other intelligence agencies. Catherine Austin Fitts, I think, in this interview indicated, when I've done my own research on it, I agree. She indicated that they basically weren't really profitable until they began partnering with the CIA, and they were getting massive amounts of money, functioning as providing cloud-based solutions, data analytics solutions to the intelligence agencies. So the Pentagon is working. Well, the primary candidate for the JEDI contract with the Pentagon is Microsoft, and then you have DHS and you have the CIA and the other intelligence agencies utilizing Amazon Web Services. And then, of course, you've got the Facebooks and the Twitters and the Googles that all have their own piece of the government pie as well. And these are the competing cloud-based AI infrastructure that has built out through commercial networks. They've built out the intelligence apparatus that is now becoming bidirectional. It is now reaching the point where you have the ability for robotics to function as fluidly and as seamlessly as humans. And you also have this idea of humans ultimately being infused with some type of nanotechnology that's going to allow for bidirectional communication, just like those robots need to function in a three-dimensional environment.
That's right. So picture, instead of it being these robots, picture it actually being people that you would think of as like fully, organic, natural humans, but they could be out on that little dance floor with a song going, and they could be made by way of their interface with the system, quote unquote, the powerful computer system and the software, to be doing that dance to that music, and maybe not even ever having known how to dance before, and certainly maybe never even having heard the song. But you know what? They could be made to do that by way of that very, very tight lock and key interface with the system.
Right.
So what we're headed toward is us all becoming peripherals of a massively powerful system of computers, which are talking cloud-based, which are talking to each other from low Earth orbit space by way of satellite technology and beaming down to local terrestrial towers, land towers here and there. That's where we're headed. It's science fiction. It's amazing, but that's what, and she's going to kind of lay that out as she goes forward. We can listen to another minute or two of her as well. I got it here. Just make sure I mute myself. Okay.
I'll share back up.
Yep. Okay. All right. So she's laying it out. She's laying it out. She's drawing a picture.
So are we seeing build a kind of human farming or something?
We have the database and software systems using artificial intelligence. A very important part of this now is the satellite system that's being put up in the orbital platform. And using telecommunications and digital technology, you have the ability 24/7 to track and monitor both your humans and your robots. And the question for Mr. Global is, what's more efficient? If I can do everything with robots, then what do I do with the humans? I don't need them anymore.
So are we seeing build a kind of human farming or something?
So they would describe it as resource management. And if you look at the technocracy and the writing about technocracy, so many of us describe we're moving from whatever systems we use now to a technocracy. In a technocracy, they view, you have two different visions of the world. My vision of the world is that humans are sovereign individuals whose freedom comes by divine authority. That is what the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution all revolve around. The image of a sovereign individual as someone who is freed by divine authority. In the vision of technocracy, a human is a natural resource like a oil deposit, and to be used as such. So they're not a sovereign individual, they're labor, and they are either more efficient or less efficient than a robot at different functions. In other words, what I'm saying is...
So that may be foreign, a kind of a foreign idea to some, but I can assure you that there are individuals at high levels in our society who regard humans as resource. I mean, we even have the term in companies, human resource management. But at the higher level, all people are regarded as a kind of inventory, and they have value only as long as they have use for a purpose that whoever it is that's running the show doesn't want to have to do themselves. So that then begets the question of, okay, well, these humans are messy, I mean, they think for themselves, and sometimes they oversleep, and sometimes they do the wrong thing, and sometimes they will not do what we want them to, and they get sick, and they get old, and they need maintenance, and, there's a lot of overhead associated with humans if you're looking at them as just a resource that you want to use to get a job done. Robots are a little bit different, because they can be built in such great precision now, and they're going to get better, that they can do many things that humans would do, and do it faster, quicker, cheaper, better. And if they break, you can fix them easily. It's not like a human that gets old and slow and tired and sick and stuff like that. So she's looking at it from the point of view of the globalist, as I think you've all gathered from what she said. So let's let her continue a little further here.
Mr. Global views the human race like livestock, not someone with which they share empathy, and they don't view us as the same species as them. And in fact, with a lot of the biotechnology, they figure they're going to live much longer lives than we do, and live very differently than we do.
So it's you don't have to look very far to know that we have a vanishing middle class in this country. And there are some there. It's much smaller than it used to be, and for every advance in machine orchestrated manufacturing, there has been a proportional decrease in the number of actual labor jobs. So people are being displaced from that. And so I guess, one of our other frontiers is our thought process, our creative process. And we're still kind of needed for that, because they haven't been able to build artificial intelligence that does everything creatively that we humans are capable of doing, but they're working on it. So if you're someone at the top that says, well, I need this many worker bees, and I need that many bean counters, and I need this many managers, and I need this many creative people, innovators, then the more that I can do with machines that are vastly easier to manage and more trouble-free than humans, we're kind of troublesome creatures, because we have free will and we do what we want and we think for ourselves. So to whatever extent that they have to deal with those complications of having us around, it is advantageous, and it removes headaches for people who, I think she said Mr. Globalist, who wants things to just work real smoothly for them so that they can have everything that they want and they don't have to deal with any more troublesome humans than they have to. And they'll keep some around, but not as many as we might want there to be. So that's kind of where she's going with this whole thesis. TMC, adding anything in on that?
No, it's
let's let her roll some more.
So there's been a real one of the challenges with the secrecy, as one group becomes more and more technologically advanced, they separate culturally, legally, financially from all the other groups. In other words, they have literally broken away and created a separate civilization. They don't think of themselves as part of our civilization anymore.
Don't you kind of get that feeling when, now I'm not going to single out anybody by name, but when you hear certain figures in the public who are elevated to a high level of recognition and fame or fortune or a political level, that they speak, if you listen carefully, it almost sounds like they're speaking down to the common people, or like I don't really want to pick anybody, but it feels like, they think of themselves as separate from like me or most of us. I've observed that. Just saying. So I think that what she says is true.
Who is they?
Well, that's the great mystery, and that's why I call this group Mr. Global. And my personal experiences with many different people in that group and factions, but ultimately, I can't tell you who really controls. What I will tell you is the planet is run by force. And so ultimately, the question is, who is the most powerful gun? And that comes down to space. Who has the most powerful space presence, space weapons, as well as who controls the sea lanes?
I would add something to that. Controlled. Ultimately, she said everything is controlled by force. Force has a money component, and it has a strategic positioning component in which one is up at an elevated level to be able to hold some of the lower, smaller, lesser forces to toe the line of what the stronger force wants to, what will that wants to implement. And so it's not strictly military force. I would add to what she said that yes, that one great force is what's being built up in low Earth orbit space right now. But just that idea that whoever's on top is ruling things by power in one form or another. And that's nothing new, except the level of power and control is now being extended. And it's happening now, here, now, today, on our planet, in our backyard, right where we live. And it's being done with these technologies. And she goes on.
So traditionally, control behind the reserve currency came from control of the sea lanes. But then as we've moved into space, it's now become control of both the sea lanes and the satellite lanes. And the question is, who controls what and who has what weapons? One of the reasons you've seen a very interesting discussion in the United States for the last 2 years is Trump has been very verbal about Space Force and what is possible in space, and he'll make these allusions to our magical weapons in space, at which point the generals look at him very disapproving, like, don't talk about that. So the answer is, we don't know. We don't know. What we do know is part of the competition right now between China and America is that the player who has the most dominant position in space has the power to control the whole planet.
So one name comes to mind. Elon Musk has, after kind of a few rocky bumps in the road with Tesla Motors, of course, he's not the only one, but he's really very aggressive about working to build out that small satellite, low Earth orbit 5G communications network. Am I right about that, TMC?
Yeah, one of a few.
Yep.
You've got the Branson, the England, UK version of Musk.
Right.
India's putting up their own networks.
Oh, are they?
China's putting yeah. China's putting up their own networks. I would imagine that Russia is doing what they can. And then I'm sure Israel is doing something. If not, they're going to be Israel's really one of the AI hubs of the world. They're on par with our Silicon Valley. You could argue they're more advanced, but I doubt it. I doubt it. But so there's two components here. She's talking about the hardware, but there's also the software piece. And that in the end, it's the software that's going to be able to outmaneuver other software to then commandeer and control whatever hardware is put up there.
Right.
So we're going through an arms race on two fronts as it relates to space. It's the physical platforms, but it's also the software.
Right. A race to get the hardware up there, but you may have put that hardware up there, but if you aren't the guy who's controlling it, or if Israel hacked into Russia's low Earth orbit hardware, well, it's not helping Russia anymore. So that's where the software and the cyber expertise comes in.
Yeah. And we're goofing around with trying to figure out how valid the damn vote is.
Oh, I know.
Let's put it this way. If they can prosecute a cyber war and get away with rigging an election, and there's no upheaval or backlash about it, what are they going to do up there when you don't have cameras proving, and you don't have actual systems that white hat, quote unquote, hackers can get at to show how easily the fraud can be perpetuated? When you don't have those capabilities, what are you going to do then? It's going to be that much easier to hack in, do something to somebody else's network, somebody else's hardware, turn around and blame them for whatever it is that's going to destabilize geopolitical relations.
Well, that's if they're racing against each other. But just think if certain few or many of them joined forces and they shared a common interest, which once again was to somehow run or rule the world cybernetically, right down to every individual on this planet, by way of having either knowingly
you're still going to have the competition over who has ultimate authority.
I agree. And
so
the
enemy of my enemy is my friend, and therefore the factions will pair up or team up if there's more than two, but then turn against each other because there is no honor amongst thieves. So it's one word, and it's who is going to be the most ruthless.
Yeah,
you could take morality and throw it out the window.
Oh, totally. That's at their level. Right down home at our level, what power do we have to either help to promote and further this type of thing, which no matter who it is that winds up controlling it, I would say that it invades our freedoms and our sovereignty and poses quite a lot of risk to what many of us have come to know as being human. What power do we have? They're going to fight amongst themselves. What can we do?
We have to understand that we are a Christian-based country, whether you believe in Christian values, whether you hold Christian values or not. This country was founded as a Christian-based society, which is a live and let live, free to worship however you choose, but don't oppress others, particularly as it relates to their speech and the way that they choose to worship. And then we need to cultivate allegiance and loyalty to our country, because our country foundationally is rooted upon documentation that was written
Those values.
in order to preserve and codify God's law.
Yep.
Which are the inalienable, fundamental rights that give humans their sovereignty and their freedom.
And they're simple. Just in case anybody needs a reminder, they are rights: life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Very simple things.
Yeah, just to clarify, the pursuit of happiness does not guarantee happiness. It does not guarantee success.
Right. Just the pursuit. You're
the
welcome
ability to
pursue
freely
that.
pursue what you love or what you choose to pursue.
Yep.
So long as it doesn't infringe on someone else's ability to do or exercise the same right.
As long as it doesn't infringe on their life or their liberty to, yeah, right. That's right. I'm going to play a little bit more of her.
Mm-hmm.
So that the player who has the most dominant position in space has the power to control the whole planet. So the Chinese have a system called the social credit system, and they're very much tying their financial transactions and different abilities.
How would you like it if a social credit system became implemented in the United States?
Already here.
Because it's just a matter of flipping a few more switches. We're already in soft social credit now.
Yeah,
It's already had soft rollout.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Yeah. All the pieces, the parts of the machinery are already there to do it.
How many people have to wear a mask? I'll phrase it this way.
Mask.
How many people go to work and wear a mask because they have to,
Right.
and take it off and throw it when they get into their car or when they get home, or in their mind throw it? How many people do it because they have to, not because they want to
Because
or
they
they
want
choose
to.
to, because they have to? And I submit to you that the credit score is already here. Otherwise, you wouldn't wear no fucking mask.
I talked to somebody at the grocery store just this afternoon. Nice lady. And, she's wearing the mask. She's checking out my stuff, and checking out, she's ringing up my stuff. And she's very nice. So we talk. And I said to her, and this is kind of what we're up against. She is a smart lady, and in her previous career, before she decided to ring up groceries at a grocery store, she was a chemist, worked in chemistry labs. Would you believe this very nice and very smart lady didn't know the relative pore size of the cloth mask that she was wearing versus the size of a virus particle? She did not know that. And I said to her, just go read up on it, check it out, look up some stuff. You'll be interested, and you'll pick right up on it. But she didn't know. She is a smart lady who has just realized that, well, if I don't wear this mask, I don't get to work here. So she didn't even pursue the question any further. And there she is, having to comply with it. And I think that with just those couple of clues that I gave her, she'll probably she'll end up drilling down to get to the facts of it, and she'll grasp it extremely quickly. It's just saying, how much is there around us that happens and that's being done, or that alters the way that we live our lives, that we just, for whatever reason, don't question it, whether we're too busy or we believe the authority figure, or we think we know that they're right, but actually they're not because we believe them, which I guess is the same thing as the other point. I think that there's a lot of that, a lot of it. So let's go on here.
To travel. These have a system called the social credit system, and they're very much tying their financial transactions and different abilities to travel and do other things to your behavior. And, we've seen different TV shows talk about these kinds of systems. But you're talking about a world where, and we see it in China, where most people are under 24/7 surveillance, and then they're financial incentives and their financial powers relate to how well behaved they are. And I would describe it essentially as a slavery system, because there's no personal freedom. So to a certain extent, what technocracy...
I remembered that I was muted that time. So in reference to personal freedoms, we now have, we conduct business on our smartphones by way of digital transactions. So it's possible to know what we're worth, and it's possible to know exactly what we purchased. It's that can all, and it is all being logged. All of that stuff is logged in databases, I'm sure multiple ones. And if one were to evaluate all that, one would be able to come up with a behavioral profile of each of us. So at any point in time, if somebody in a certain position wanted to discourage a certain type of behavior, they might alter the what's being displayed on that smart device. And at an extreme, they might be able to block our block our ability to find certain things that we might be looking for, or maybe if we did find it, be able to block our ability to purchase them, either by one of two methods, either the object in question that we were trying to acquire, or at the really high level, being able to just lock your finances. You know, so the pieces are all there now to do this. They're all there, and we're already being, profiled for, what it is that we like and what we prefer in our behavior. That's already all being done. She goes on.
What it will do is move us to a similar kind of system as the Chinese social credit system,
where if you misbehave, you can be punished.
Right. So in theory, you have to get a certain kind of job to make a certain kind of money. In the current system, in the new system, you have to work for a certain kind of company and achieve a certain kind of prominence to be allowed to move more than 10 miles from your home, or to be allowed to fly. So there'll be a pecking order that relates to your freedoms to either travel or roam, or how much sort of access.
And what ultimately would likely govern whether you receive any of those incentives or perks would most likely be whether your behavior was sufficiently compliant with whatever the one ruling it, whatever the agenda is. So we're on the verge of all that now.
You have to resources, so how much money you can make. But remember, you're going into a system where if they believe they can automate everything with robotic software and AI, it's going to be that much harder for you to share in the benefits and the wealth of the system, because the central group can extract so much more.
So if the system doesn't need you, and if the people that run the system look at individuals like just about all of us here present folks tonight with us on this stream, then we are expendable. We're not needed. We're just, another obstacle in the way, another management headache. So if you want to have longevity in such a system, one would want to make it one's business to be vitally valuable to the people who run that system. And a lot of hand-eye coordinated mechanical operations in manufacturing no longer require humans. In fact, robots do it better. So a whole lot of that's gone away, and other things will go away. So when we're not necessary, I think we can be pretty sure that somehow we will, life won't be real pleasant, and it may, end sooner than it might otherwise have, for lack of any more graphic way of expressing it.
In other words, they have a one-way mirror. They can see everything you do. You can't even see who they are.
Think of the truth of that. when you pull out your smart device and I don't care what you do, browse, dial a phone number, send a text, they can, it's, I guess, it's one subset of Mr. Globalist. It would be whoever is at that position relative to those devices. They can see and log and profile and characterize everything that you're doing. And you don't know who they are, and you don't know where they are, and you don't know what they're doing with that data. Guaranteed. That's all going on now, right now.
Yeah. Okay.
What's very important to understand about what is happening is that the majority of people have been, if we're talking about a transhumanist system, or, in short, a slavery system, most of us have been supporting it and financing it and building it.
Isn't that what we were talking about earlier? We're almost unknowingly complicit and participating in helping to grow it. Why? How? Who wants to give up their smartphone? Just taking that as one little example. Who wants to do that? And in a whole nother arena, let's say it's about food that's produced by the agribusiness. Big ag. Okay, big agri. Does everybody want to go out and grow and hunt and can and preserve all of their own food, or would you rather buy it from somebody else? Do you really know what's in that stuff? Not really. So, we're complying. We're kind of going along with that. We follow right along so obediently with the plan as it's laid out in front of us.
There's more to it than that.
You should have this device. You should eat this food. Go.
So it's this idea of
you should get this vaccination. You should get this vaccination, right? Yep. Eat this food. Yep. Okay.
It's this idea of having the illusion of free market. Well, we don't have free markets. So what we have is a form of fascism. It's crony capitalism, whereby businesses rise and fall by selection rather than by merit or by competition or through innovation. Those things are sought after and purchased by businesses and corporations and entities that have been chosen to survive and to thrive, and then they benefit unfairly from this selection process. And I say all of that simply to outline this. The world in which we are born only presents upward mobility to support this agenda of transhumanism. The entire system is structured so that any or as much energy that can be extracted or manipulated throughout society goes towards this construction project.
Right. It ultimately all funnels into the same purpose. And you hit on a good thing with that illusion of choice. We think that we have more choices than we actually do, because in reality, we're presented with a number of different options, and each of those different options is not significantly different from the others. And if you want to venture off and do something really different, well, whoa, Nelly, it's going to be hard. It's going to be real difficult. So you've got 100 different types of, I don't know, go in the food aisle of the grocery store and look in the soft drink aisle. You've got 1,000 different bottles with 100 different choices of flavor and color, and just about every one of them has high fructose corn syrup in it. Just one example. You got to really dig to find something that has, not got that in it. That's just one example. Political elections are run the same way. Illusion of choice. Pick another example. Oh, which PC do you want? Well, whichever PC it is, guess what? It's going to have a Gates-approved Microsoft Windows operating system on it. Well, you can work harder and go for a Linux system and put it on the machine. You go and buy one, every single one of them that you go and buy, it's got that. Well, you can have this version of Windows or that version of Windows, but, basically it's a little bit of a different overlay and a few different bells and whistles, but it's still Mr. Gates' operating system. You have any other nifty examples?
Anything. Cars, clothes.
Oh, yeah. Cars. There's a great one. Okay. If you want a non-fuel injected car, you really won't get one now. Why? Because fuel injection is more efficient. However, it's vastly more complex than a carburetor and a mechanical fuel pump, not to get too technical. But going forward, if you want to get a car in the future, it is going to be equipped with a standard, basically mandated set of pieces of computer equipment in it that have to abide by certain standards of operation that you aren't going to find a car that doesn't have these things in it. Otherwise, it just won't be sold. It'll never hit the market. You'd have to build it yourself. So who wants to go and build their own car from scratch just so that they can have a simple one? Nobody's going to do that. How many people want to grow all their own food rather than buy what is being, provided to them as their apparent choice of many options? Not that many people. So this is really tough. It's tough to break away from that system. Who is going to be out there that doesn't have a smartphone? As soon as you got that smartphone, you've automatically got a listening, bugging, monitoring device on your person, and you're connected to a network. And within a very, very short distance, you can be located, know exactly where you are, what you're doing. Who is going to not want a phone? It's so hard, TMC. What's the solution to this?
We need transparency, and then accountability, and then all the rest I'll just keep to myself.
Well, if we're talking about unplugging either selectively or wholesale, it's really hard to do. And it's going to become, if you think it's difficult now to get away from all this stuff, let me check out the comments, see what's going on out there. It's going to get harder. And Chazotron is, good to see you here, by the way, is putting up passages from the Bible, of all things. Daniel chapter 12, verse 4. Time of the end knowledge shall be increased. Revelation 13, verse 15. And he had power to give life to the image of the beast and kill those who don't worship it. It's kind of scary stuff, and we're generally not a real fear-driven show that we run here, but I don't know any other way other than to grapple with some of these realities of what's around us. And we're about halfway through the show, and to drive the point home, we can bring up some devices and some patents of stuff that you'd be amazed how far they've gone with it, and wow, it's very advanced. And last comment from Chaz is tech gone bad. Possibly, maybe. I think kind of it's kind of likely. All right, so what we're trying to do is we're trying to wrap together into a coherent picture a whole lot of things for everybody in the discussion. It is, for example, the bioneural interfaces that we've been talking about, and that Catherine Austin Fitts is fitting in as a puzzle piece. The genetic reprogramming that TMC touched upon with the devices and the diagram that he put up a little while ago, showing the injectable nano-sized devices that can read and write to brain cells or other neurologically driven parts of the body, which the whole body is. And then tying that in with 5G technology. 5G communications is faster, smaller, more efficient, more close to your person. All right. So it's not, just from that tower a long way away, and then the TV aerial on the top of your old TV picks up that signal. That's really old school. Remember those rabbit ear antennas, for anybody old enough to have ever seen those? That's, that signal source is a long way away. Now we're talking about signal sources, not just in your home with your Wi-Fi router and all that equipment. And we get into this stuff and exactly what it's capable of. We're talking about devices on your person, which are extremely powerful, such as whether it be your wireless Bluetooth headphones that can read your electroencephalogram, that's your brain waves, or whether it be your smartphone that can monitor a large number, at least the new ones, can start to monitor a large number of parameters about you. And the latest generation of them can actually monitor aspects of our physiology. What's your heartbeat? What's your respiration rate, your body temperature? Are you sweating? Are you calm? Are you physically active at this moment, or are you dormant, resting? And there's another area that we went off in for a while. I'm only going to just briefly mention it, just so that we're going to get back to it. But we've touched on the higher levels of functionality of human DNA that we just, I think we did like 4 episodes on that. And that has to do with quantum physics. I just wanted to mention that just to let people know that we'll get back into that someday.
You mentioned television towers and rabbit ears and all that.
Yes.
Well, I looked at this the other day and thought I'd bring it up. Biometrics, right? Unique identifiers like a fingerprint. Your fingerprint is a biometric. Your voice print's a biometric. This is biometric authentication using UHF and VHF radar. So these are signal frequencies that are commonly found in television and cell tower transmission bands.
Yep.
And it talks about being able to basically map your skeletal system, and it gets into the different transmission properties of tissue and how each tissue is different, and different signals go through different tissues in certain ways, so they can identify unique characteristics about you in real time. This is from the Air Force, by the way. So I just wanted to share this real quick. This is just one of many.
One of many that we've had up.
This idea of tracking and identification and surveillance is probably a good overarching word. This is just one. So,
the thing that would blow most people away is the level of precision of the tracking that is now possible with the latest devices being prototyped and designed. It's
sub-millimeter.
To the sub-millimeter?
It's sub-millimeter resolution, yeah.
So precise.
Yeah.
So you're talking about sub-millimeter mapping of something. That sounds good if you're looking at a high-resolution picture of, a bouquet of flowers. It's another thing if we're talking about sub-millimeter resolution of the brain cells that are inside your brain. That's rather intense.
Yeah. So I'll give this back to you. I don't know if you wanted to watch any more of the that interview.
She wraps it up. I think I'm going to save her last part for the end. What would you like to dazzle us with and amaze us with in terms of current developments? Anything?
Cybernetic stuff? Yeah, we can. Yeah. We can look at cybernetic stuff.
We got a little bit of time before we run out, and we'll save her wrap up for the last 10 minutes.
Trying to find the.
I kind of agree, Chazatron. Tech is in and of itself just another tool, but tech gone really high powered and really high capacity is something where the stakes become very high on whether it goes good or bad. And if it goes good, it could go really good. Okay, so talking about being able to help people to be healthy for many, many years beyond what would be the normal time of old age and demise. And if it goes really, really bad, then we're talking about modifying people in such a way that they perhaps are only able to function in certain ways as long as it is under the control of whatever those nano devices are that are now reading and writing to one's brain cells. So the stakes get super high. All right, you found one. Okay.
Yeah, so this is the another DARPA N3 program. You can see here, I'll start with the title. This is Rice University. Feds fund the creation of a headset for high-speed brain link. And the DARPA N3 program, non-surgical neurotechnology, DARPA.
Right? Non-surgical.
Yeah, so the idea of this particular program is similar to the other, but what it looks to be is basically two people being able to engage in synthetic telepathy or synthetic communication, potentially up to and including exchanging sensory information.
Right.
So you can exchange emotion, you can exchange smell, taste, touch, hearing, or sight.
Anything that goes on in your brain can be appropriately mapped and then channeled out to the computer, which is in the middle. That computer is the interface device there. So
it's digitized and transmitted remotely and then re-encoded as a bioneural signal.
And it should be noted that that computer is, if I were to use the term, it's the man in the middle. So everything has to go through the computer before it arrives at the other person, meaning that it could be modified en route, or it could be muted or altered, or so
at a minimum, it's being monitored.
Yeah, absolutely.
At a minimum.
Right.
So this program, Moana, is designing a headset. It has magnetic stimulators, optical stimulators, and they also have sonic stimulators for ultrasound.
So this is a wearable.
Yeah, they're looking at all three. And what the point of this headset is they want to build a headset so that they can test combinations of electromagnetic, magnetic, electric, optic, and acoustic signals in any combination they see fit.
Yep.
To stimulate the brain, to learn better how that's going. And this is the part that I want to read to you here. This Moana program, their decoding and encoding technologies will each employ viral vector gene delivery.
Whoa.
A technology that's in clinical trials for treating macular degeneration. So this is a therapeutic purpose for macular degeneration, as well as some cancers and neurologic conditions. Genetic payloads, which differ for decoding information versus encoding information into and out of the brain, will be delivered with the help of ultrasound to select groups of neurons in at least 16 target areas of the brain.
Okay, so this is more than just a headset. What this is it's at least in this iteration of it, there's something that you need to bring on board into the person's body and get those things positioned in the brain in specific areas.
And this is where this other piece ties in. This is Battelle.
Yes.
Battelle DARPA N3 program develop an injectable bidirectional brain-computer interface, which talks about using magnetic nanoparticles to deliver the gene encoding information into the brain, but then also be able to use the magnetic nanoparticles as stimulation.
Oh, I was going to say to pick up the activity of neurons and transmit it up.
But it could. So the magnetic nanoparticles are a technology all by themselves. They can read and write information all by themselves. Let me see if I can I'll search for it real quick in my notes. And magnetic.
So while you're looking for that, again, what we're talking about, we discuss, we think, we theorize about what the future might be. but now we show you actual work, DARPA funded at Rice University, where it's here. So it's here. So now it's just a matter of how far this will be deployed and whether it's knowingly deployed to people or on people. And this is why you need to know. This is why we need to know. And when we're talking about a viral vector, viruses, if they're transporting this stuff on board into a human by way of viruses, well, those can be conveyed by airborne vector or liquid or food or direct absorption to the skin or injected right into a vein, into a blood vessel. Viruses are really easy to get around and get into you. And now you've got magnetic neural control with nanoparticles. Okay.
This is MIT.
Yep.
And it says they can differ their responses to alternating magnetic fields. This is one guy working on it. This is in 2014, mind you.
Yeah.
There are other articles here that I'm looking for that specifically discuss.
So when we say the phrase neural control, that's anything from being able to make the muscles in an arm move, okay, because that's controlled by nerves and nerve cells and nerve fibers. But neural control, we have neurons in our brain. So neural control means that we're going to be able to, or they are going to be able to first start to target certain areas in the brain, thought centers, if you will, and be able to attenuate, stimulate, or modify what those neurons are doing by way of magnetic control with nanoparticles in your brain. That just sounds like it promises to end up being abused somehow, in my opinion. That's what it seems like.
So
we wouldn't talk about this stuff if it wasn't important. It is.
Almost there. I found this other one. I'll show you here real quick while I'm looking for the next one. This is barcoded nanoparticles in vivo discovery of targeted therapeutics. And this talks about the effectiveness of nucleic acid drugs is limited by inefficient delivery to target tissues. So what they're doing is they designed and optimized a high throughput DNA barcoding system to simultaneously measure nucleic acid delivery mediated by dozens of distinct nanoparticles in a single mouse. This nano barcoding system can be used to study hundreds or even thousands of nanoparticles directly in the body in vivo and could dramatically accelerate the discovery and understanding of nanoparticle drug delivery systems.
Right.
So
when we're talking about nanoparticles, we're talking about things that are so tiny. There isn't a filter that would filter them out. They go through everything. And once they're in you, then they are going to most likely do what they were designed to do. And in this case, I believe it's to either stimulate or destimulate certain parts of DNA so that DNA becomes active and, creates whatever the proteins or structures are that it's written to do, or it's shut off or modified. Any of the above. I was just
sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You knew where you were going. Go there.
Yeah. So here's another one with the magnetic nanoparticles, and all this, I guess, is really centered around that image that came from the Battelle website that is showing this notion of being able to deliver genetic information, but also the delivery vehicle is also a stimulator. and can also be used to read and understand what's going on.
Right.
So here's another one, magnetic nanoparticles. This is back in 2010, right?
Yeah.
Long time ago. Remotely control the neurons into animal behavior. And it says there's a video here. It's been a while since I've looked at this video, but these are basically they're worms, E-ligands. But what they've done is they've put nanoparticles at their sensory neurons to respond when they apply a magnetic field.
Yes.
So they should tell you when they turn this thing on, and you'll see a change in their behavior. It didn't. There's better videos out there that show this. Anyway, so the way the nanoparticles really work is they are able to grow the nanoparticles in specific ways so that they respond or resonate at particular frequencies, or they respond or resonate at particular directionality, so a magnetic field can be applied from left to right, from right to left, up or down or up, or at a diagonal, right? I'm just giving you the basic cardinal directions and the subsets thereof, just to give you an idea. They can grow and produce nanoparticles that respond to one particular magnetic field orientation that subsequently has a particular frequency that also has a particular amplitude, meaning the amount of power applied or the amount of change in the magnetic field.
Yeah, and those are all keys for the targeting. You want to have the right frequency, the right amplitude, and the right positioning and location. Then
what it gives you is a number of combinations to use simultaneously.
Sure.
So you can dope the magnetic nanoparticles with specific receptor site information, proteins, enzymes, DNA, RNA, whatever, to go to a particular place in the brain.
Exactly.
Knowing that what you've doped this particular nanomagnetic particle with something that's going to go to site A, and then a different magnetic nanoparticle construct is going to site B and site C and site D, so that when you send the right magnetic signal in the right direction with the right amplitude with the right frequency, you're stimulating A.
Yep.
Versus B versus C. And then you can send more than one at the same time and start stimulating multiple regions at the same time. And this is done with heat, and it's done with torsion, with tension. So what they can do is they can heat up the magnetic nanoparticle by getting it to basically vibrate, to resonate, and it generates heat. And that will cause the neuron to fire. But they can also get it to attach to the outside of a cell. And because it's magnetic, they can then put a force on it with a magnetic field and get it to twist or to exert a torque.
Something to the cell that it's attached to.
It's a mechanical excitation, not a thermal excitation.
And just for a minute, to scale this up, these are particles that can be uniquely designed and then uniquely positioned. And there's a lot of cells in a body and in a brain. But with a sufficiently powerful computer system, it is possible to know the position and activate any one of these things uniquely, or combinations thereof, like you said before. So with good computers, you can have a lot of these. I mean, you can have enough of these in a brain that have been specifically located and settled and parked and targeted to areas of the brain's processing centers, whether it be visual or higher thoughts or memories or motor functions, and be able to keep track of all that with a computer. I was backing up files on one of my older computers, and it's an old one, and I backed up files, and there were 3 million something files on that computer. So that's an old computer. It's not even new. But I was able to track and quantify and back up over 3 million files on an old computer. And it did it in about 5 minutes. Not bad. Imagine with a really powerful system what you could do, and let's say instead of it being a few million points, let's say it's 20 or 30 million points of activity, particular brain neurons, or for that matter, could be neurons elsewhere in the body too. It's doable. The technology's here. And they were working, what was the date of this one?
This was
19?
this is ongoing. So this started in 2018, and they're in 18-month intervals. I believe it started in 2018. It might have been 2017.
Yep.
But they're in 18-month intervals, and then there's 3 intervals: phase 1, 2, and 3.
Yep.
So they're in their second. They're in their second phase right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're at the beginning of it or the end of their second phase for this DARPA program.
So ongoing work. They're halfway through it, and they're talking about bidirectional brain-computer interfaces that are nano-sized. They are literally injectable, maybe even absorbable, maybe inhalable. Let's say it's really not that hard to, inject someone with something, but it wouldn't be out of the question to start using viruses as delivery vectors for these things also. And if that were to be done, then how hard is it to envision that unknowingly little micro devices like these could be transported by such a small little particle as a virus? And then you get it by an airborne vector. You might breathe it in. It's not so far-fetched. It's really pretty likely.
This is old stuff. The synthetic nanotechnology is old. It's the genetic manipulation where they can grow these communication mechanisms in the body. That's the new way, where they're actually using cellular biology
to make nanoparticles,
to make structures, biologic structures that more easily respond, more easily interact with, more consistently reproduce their action or reaction when stimulated with light, sound, electromagnetics, or chemicals.
Right.
Because those are the basic fundamentals to go through the other types of ion channel, which is how neurons basically talk, is with ion channel flow. Those are the basic fundamentals so you can get things like creating heat, you can get things like creating pressure, as well as the basic light sensitive, electrically sensitive, magnetically sensitive, or acoustically sensitive, which is really just, it's another way of, sound is just a mechanically interacting. It's creating a pressure wave.
Right.
So those are the ways in which you're not going to have a plug in the back of your head like you see in the Matrix. It won't be that way. It's going to be done with a wireless interface that's able to steer and point and track down to sub-millimeter resolution where you are in real time and know what part of the brain or body needs to be energized in one form or another to induce a particular signal composite that then will
desired for a particular
have some effect in the brain and body. Right. It'll be done wirelessly.
The main command center for all of us humans is the brain. There are certain other areas of the body that have some functionality along that line. The spinal cord has intelligence about it as well. It's got some neurons in there. And there are some other sections in either the abdomen or the thorax of the human body that also seem to be large aggregations of nerve cells. But the main control center is the brain. But you can put these things anywhere and get them steered, located, and parked in position, ready for action, whatever that action is, to be inputted from the outside by one or more of the methods that you mentioned to stimulate them, whether it's electromagnetic or acoustic or electrical. And what's that diagram you've got there?
This is an AT&T patent, originally in 2012, revised in 2015.
Okay.
Routing policies for biological hosts. And what it's talking about here is being able to connect your body and your brain to the internet and put addresses on it. It says here.
What we're talking about when we talk routing policies, that's a term that comes from the computer field.
Yeah.
Routing policies have a lot to do with IP addresses and, how you direct them, where you group them, where what their target is.
So it says right here, exemplary embodiments may include biological subnets or biosubnets.
There's another computer term from the internet, subnets.
The above paragraph explained that communications may be destined for a particular region, a neurologic region within the brain, and or to a particular biological region within the body. Because these embodiments provide the interface to these addressable locations, subnetwork notations may be used to denote the different neurological regions and the biological regions. In some embodiments, in other words, may thus assign a biological subnet address to existing addressing protocols. Subnet notations may be used by the interface application, the computer, to ensure addressable routing to the proper logical destinations in your brain or your body. Below, a generic Internet Protocol address, IPv6, has a generic subset, whereby, the subnet indicates that a predetermined number of bits in the IPv6 specification may be reserved for biologic subnets. Each neurological region within the brain and or each part of the body may thus be addressable using any particular subnet. So, just as communication devices may have its own unique Internet Protocol address, each neurological region within the brain and or each biological region within the body may also have its own unique Internet Protocol address. In this way, signals and communications may be addressably routed to different destinations within the brain or the body.
So I wanted to just a quick interjection. What using that term subnet and subnetting is, to put it in simple terms, it's groups. So let's say that you have your primary group, and so that would be your primary net addresses. Let's call it 1 through 6. Now, if you want to address another level, another subsection, then what you'd have is let me just pick out of that 1 through 6, let me pick 4. And number 4 will have within it another 1 through 6, or maybe 1 through 10. So a subnetted address would be 4, I'll pick a number on the second group of 10, call it 7. So 4-7 would be main group 4, subsection 7. And you can subnet and subnet and subgroup a long, long way. So you can have a group within a group within a group. So you could have, a whole lot, to the point where it would be possible to have an IP address or a group of a group of a group address for literally any major center, any major neurological center or organ target in a human body without too much trouble. With current IPv6 technology, and IPv6 is the latest internet numbering scheme, and the previous one started to run to the limit of numbers, and so they came up with a new one recently, and this one has a huge number of possible groups and subgroups that you can have in it. And so once you target a particular person, you've located a certain person, and you use the IPv6 numbering system, then that really allows that, like, right down to the specific structure in the specific organ of the specific human person's body with particular neurons as the target to be addressed and stimulated or attenuated, if that made any sense.
Yeah.
Its technology is already here. It's here.
It's
been designed.
it says that each biological signal may be received from or identified with any particular biologic region within the body area network. Some biologic signals may originate from or be identified with an arm, while others are identified with a leg. Granularity may even be finer, thus identifying biological cells from a hand, finger, toe, or even a single cell. Regardless, when the communication device receives the biological signal may be identified with or contain information identifying the biologic region within the body area network. So they can get your information, they can store it, and they can retrieve it, and they'll know where it came from out of your body, even if they're not measuring it in real time. That's what that is saying.
Explain. That went over my head. Not in real time.
Yeah, so regardless when the communication device receives the biological signal may be identified with or contain information identifying the biological region within the biologic area network, within the body area network. So that means that the biological signal could be cached on your phone, right?
Okay.
And then it goes and it spits out, when it gets a good connection or there's a lull in the network, it spits out the little notepad of your biologic signals out to the cloud, and it will know what those signals are, where they came from, and when they were extracted.
Yep. It's also time stamped from when it was extracted.
Yeah,
yep.
Exactly right. So I want to hold on one more thing. This part's important. So there's a schematic in here that talks about a biological host being able to interact with another host. So person to person, person to animal, that kind of a thing, right? Okay. It says that one person's neurological area network may communicate with a different person's neurological area network. So synthetic telepathy, artificial emotion exchange, sensory exchange. I'm touching sand. You have the sensation of touching sand, right? Likewise, one person's body area network may communicate with a different person's body area network. Cyber prostitution, anybody?
So I can think through a sequence of body motions and another person will do them.
Well, we're getting there. What we've got so far is that you can think about something and the other person will know what you're thinking about. You can exchange thought. You can exchange sensation, right? So instead of being a peeping Tom, you're literally getting the sensation of what you're peeping at.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So this stuff exists.
You don't have to be there. You can be remote.
No. So all the little old perverts that are pedophiles, they can just go get somebody who's younger, log into their brain while they're doing their deed, and they can feel and have those sensations synthetically.
Wow. Even more than almost a person-to-person experience. It's like it's right in your head.
Yeah, one person's body area network may communicate with another person's body area network. Indeed, one person's neurological area network may communicate with a different person's body area network. Now that's where my brain controls your body.
Yep, you got there. Yep, exactly.
As one person's intrahost networks are addressable, different people and animals may conduct interhost communications.
People and animals also, okay.
In more simple terms, listen closely, one person's brain may control another person's body and vice versa.
So, if we take a step upward and look down at this, I have to ask myself why there is so much work and energy invested in this, if this is what the ultimate purpose of it is. And again, it can be a good thing or a bad thing. Once again, it's just a matter of who is routing and controlling and who is the body area network target of the other person's neurological area network. And once this extremely powerful stuff is out there, do either you or me have any idea how we would control it? How would you've got to isolate yourself. Once again, we're talking about having to unplug from the system somehow.
That's the importance of the satellite grid.
You can't unplug. That's
no, and I can show you patents where they're able to send multiple frequencies through Faraday cages to still excite electric circuits, which is all we are. We're just a complex array of electric circuits. So even if you think you're going to Faraday cage your house and tinfoil hat your gonads, it's not going to matter, man. It's not going to matter.
Right.
That's why it needs to be looked at philosophically in a very different kind of a way, whereby
we're talking about a sky network being built, a sky control network being built.
Yeah, it's Skynet. Now. Yeah, totally. It's exactly what it is.
Right.
Skynet. Yeah. Only the Terminators will coexist alongside the automatons that are made of flesh and blood. We will lose our autonomy. We will lose our autonomy through the push to drive automation. And through that transformation.
And how is that going to be sold to us? How are we going to be made to go automated? That?
We will become automatons. We will lose our autonomy through the push and drive to achieve automation, whereby then we will become automatons.
Those people who want to say no to this, what means do they have to be able to?
There's two ways to go about it. Have the discussions, legislate the laws, codify them through things like an Internet Bill of Rights, and then start holding people accountable and being transparent with how these things are being done. Or you go to war. You engage in kinetic conflict. There's only two ways to go about it. And they're taking away speech. So we're being steered into a cataclysm because we're not allowed to have the discussions for one reason or another. Censorship being one, right. and bullshit D-class, a lack of adequate D-class is a whole nother issue.
And a good modicum of conditioning to people to this being normal, and press releases and puff pieces and promises of how either you need it or it's really going to be good for you. And, that combined with stifling opposing views means that we kind of push people's thinking in a certain direction. And they don't even know what the alternatives were. They don't even know what some of the overreach dangers might be.
Well, with these kind of technologies, you won't even know what's happening.
No. Nope. Because
if you don't understand that your impulses can theoretically, at this point, practically be overridden synthetically and have artificial stimuli applied. So how are you going to be able to distinguish the difference? And it's one thing to be a grown adult and have these sensations and kind of wonder, right? If you're a child and you don't have defense mechanisms, you haven't developed into an adult, into a grounded, well-rounded adult, how powerful are these systems against kids?
Huge, because they never knew anything else.
And how many children now have electronic devices around them for hours a day and is now a prerequisite, a requirement for education?
Just about all of them in suburbia and urban areas. Just about all of them.
Yeah, and the rural broadband 5G, $5 billion associated with the Farm Bill in 2018 is now 2 years old.
The rest of it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Transhumanism at its finest.
It's people in the chat reacting to this is yikes. Yep, yikes. We are on the road toward this happening now. It's not fully lost to us yet. We haven't lost the battle yet, but we really don't have a whole lot of time left, especially when we're talking about the amount of scale up of this network and don't forget the other little piece of tonight's discussion. We're talking about nanoscale circuits, and you've got that up there now, but also nano-sized intelligent little devices which can be delivered by viral vectors or injected. So I just want people to put two and two together about what could be designed into a liquid to be injected into us, and what could be delivered by a virus vector, a designed virus that carries on it certain of these, maybe one nano device per virus particle, something like that. I'm just guessing, but I mean, viruses are really small, and you can get millions of them in one.
I've looked at patents that allow for genetic delivery through any kind of way it can get into the system: inhalation, ingestion,
absorption,
eyes, nose, ears, skin.
Yep.
Everything. Digestion. They have stuff that's designed to pass through the mucus linings in your intestines. I mean, there's patents for all of these things.
Right. I'm not saying it's happening, that it's going to happen, but I mean, think you go to the packaged salad aisle and you want to buy some greens, the salad mix. Well, on that salad mix, that could all have had sprinkled onto it a whole number of these things. You'd never see them. They're not going to give you an upset stomach, but they could be on there. They could be in there, and nobody would ever be the wiser for what they ingested, or what they breathed in, or what they absorbed. We have a little bit more defense when we're talking about something being injected into us, because we can just say, no, I don't want the injection. But when it's in your food or your water or your air, it's invisible. You don't see it.
Yeah. So since that last little, the piece about networking the body and the brain down to a cell.
Body area network and the neurological area network. Yes.
I thought it'd be appropriate just to highlight this real quick. The cyborg cell molecular nanoscale circuits for active control of cells. Air Force Research Laboratory funded Dr. Charles Lieber, Harvard College president and fellow, right, head of the chemistry department, Dr. Charles Lieber. The final report was issued August 27th, 2018. The abstract, which is all we're going to read here, says the goal of this work is to develop molecular nanoscale circuits that control cells via external radiation. So wireless control, wireless communication control. We developed silicon nanowire probes as platform elements of these circuits and demonstrated their insertion into single cells, followed by stimulation to elicit cell signaling. Finally, achieving a scalable, modular nano device platform capable of recording high amplitude intracellular electrical signals in electrogenic cells, so cells that utilize electricity to either communicate or are stimulated by.
Right.
In parallel, we develop a conformal deposition technique and site-selective deposition of polymers to modify probes. That's how they can get the different pieces or components of the circuits inside a single cell, and an approach to decorate nanowires with heavy metal-free quantum dot emitters that provide a strong, macroscopically addressable and reproducible nanoprobe emission signal. So those are the little beacons that could potentially also be used to emit photons for light stimulation inside of cells.
Yep.
In addition to just being markers.
And how are they powered? They're most likely powered by being also designed to pick up energy from just the normal metabolic activities going on.
In this case, they were saying external radiation.
Okay.
But yeah, the external radiation could be cellular radiation, an electric impulse.
Okay.
Right.
Right. So when you're in a strong field of external radiation, these little devices can harvest otherwise unneeded energy from that field and use it to power their little circuitry.
Yeah, or that's their job, is to pick up those signals and then be able these things can be read remotely.
Yeah, so the signal is actually both powering the device as well as giving it the input signal to tell it
it can
what to
read
do.
and write. It can read and write. And so when it's reading, if you have a complex radar field that's able to look at each of the tissues in the body and understand the difference in the tissues and create high resolution mapping of all of the organs in the body at a sub-millimeter level, what you would do is you would put nanotechnology in an organ and you would image the organ, sub-millimeter, three-dimensional imaging of an organ, and then assign an address and route and map and catalog where all of the nanotech circuits are. And then you could begin to start building models to stimulate. You can stimulate each of those circuits in particular combinations to get the desired effect. And everybody has their own little profile at that point. And this is what cyborging looks like. It's not metal on the outside, folks.
No, it's not like what everybody thinks it is. When we think cyborg, we think of someone that's got, like a metal arm and wires sticking out. It's not like that. It's all on board. Yeah. This is, when we're talking about nano anything, that's submicroscopic. It's extremely tiny. So these wires, these nano circuits, nano wires, molecular sized, they're very, very small. You aren't going to see them. Going to see them.
And this guy's got patents for nano bioelectronics. Patented
stuff. So we're not spitballing here. We're not daydreaming. We're not just hallucinogenically coming up with these ideas. It's really being built. And I step back and I say, why? Why do they do this?
Year. You see the year?
07. 07.
Yeah.
Look what they were doing in 07. Let's read a little bit of this. This is what they were doing in 2007, 13 years ago. So I'll bet it's going to be a little larger, but still with the same functionality.
Yeah, so nanoelectronic elements such as nanotubes or nanowires and biologic components such as neurons. In one aspect, cells such as neurons are positioned in electrical communication with one or more nanoscale wires. The nanoscale wires may be used to stimulate the cells and or determine an electrical condition of the cells. So read or write information into and out of an electrically responsive cell, like a neuron.
Like neurons. Yep.
Right. More than one nanoscale wire may be positioned in electrical communication within the cell. For example, in distinct regions of the cell. This stuff is small enough so that many of them, they say, I believe in this patent, up to like 50 were put into one cell. 50
That's
of these little things put into one cell.
Yep.
However, the nanoscale wires may be positioned such that they are relatively close together. For example, spaced apart by no more than 200 nanometers, the nanoscale wires may be disposed on a substrate. For example, between electrodes, and the cells may be adhered to the substrate. So this is like neurons on a chip.
Right.
Brain cells on a chip. For example, using cell adhesion factors such as polysine,
So earlier we were talking about merely just turning on or turning off a neuron. But that's not enough. What we want to have, according to this one, this nanobioelectronics from 07, is a concept and a device or a system whereby you got 50 different ways to control one cell. 50 different ways, maybe as many as that, maybe. And wow, think of the capacity of that.
Yeah, I have a feeling in a neuron, what they would like is multifunctionality from each of the pieces of nanotech, but at a minimum, assign some for read and some for write, and then to begin to orient them in such a way so that you can start mapping where signals are going to and where they're coming from to better map neurological networks. So you're not just getting an on-off impulse, you're getting an on-off read, but you're also getting directionality as well.
Yep. That brings up an interesting point about neurons, and I'm trying to reach back to old studies that I had. I believe that most neurons have one axon or output device, but have many input devices or dendrites. So dendrites are the input devices, axons are the output device or structure on the neuron. And so if you have multiple nano control circuits in there, one might be able to shut off certain inputs to certain groups of the dendrites that are the input to the cell and only let certain ones activate the cell to fire out or shut them all off.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's utterly amazing stuff. I want to go back to Catherine Austin Fitz for we're running a little bit over, but that's okay. We're on a run. I want to wrap up with her. And I got her right here, and here she comes. And she gives a kind of a thing for us to just think about going forward. And it's like, what do you do? What do you do? So this is her words. And I'd like to, once again, on live air here, I would like to thank Catherine Austin Fitz in advance for letting us try to disseminate some of her knowledge and her insights a little bit further. Thank you, Catherine.
So when I look at all the big pharma executives, why are they building a system where their own children or grandchildren will be slaves? Why are the central banks doing it? Why do they think, there's a theory in America for many years among the sort of money classes that if I make enough money, I can get a waiver, I can get out of it, I can eat organic food, not eat the GMOs, and my grandkids, won't have to take vaccines. But if you look at who's implementing all these different activities, we're building our own slavery system, and that means we have the power to stop. In other words, we don't have to finance the companies that are doing this. We don't have to work for the companies that are doing this. And in fact, we don't even have to pay our taxes because the government is breaking all the laws related to financial management. We have the ability to hold them accountable. So we're building the prison and we're financing the prison, and that gives us the power to stop. And that's why it's so important that we see where the system is going.
Well, it's hard though, isn't it? It's hard. If you have a nice high-paying job from some company that's knee-deep, that's neck-deep in developing these technologies and they're not being held accountable, how do you make such a tough decision as to give up that job and, go and raise chickens instead? It's really, really tough. Really tough. But this is real. This is what's going on. I'll let her go. She's almost done.
There will be no exceptions.
So what is the solution?
Solution is, number one, bring transparency to what's happening, understand where the system is going, and then stop building it.
Isn't that brilliant? Transparency, understand where the system is going, and then stop building it. And TMC, how fast is this all being built right now in your estimation? Don't even answer that. Oh man,
It's already done.
The
only thing that's missing are the final touches on the hardware. Yeah. So when the new antenna systems go online, satellite and terrestrial, and they're hooked up through the new Ethernet standard, then it's done. It's done.
Yep. We've already got IPv6, which is a robust enough numbering system to be able to address all those parts of the body that we were talking about. We've got 5G being built out, which is now affording a much higher throughput to get more data in and out and to have it more efficient and closer to you everywhere. 5G transceiver on every telephone pole in the town. So so once all that pieces of the machinery are in place, it's really just a matter of who do you want to address and to do what and when and how much do you want to do it. That's all it's going to be. It's like pick anybody.
If you work for Big Pharma and you're building this, stop. Go find something else to do, like build local fresh food systems so you will have food. So stop financing it. Begin the conversation of where this is going and, more importantly, where we want to go. Because we're going to have to rebuild the economy bottom up if we don't want to be highly centralized. So this comes down.
Hear what she said. We've seen a trend where small companies are subsumed into larger ones. Small companies might have been local with people in your own neighborhood working there, and once they are subsumed into larger ones, then, like, who's running this company anyway? I don't even know which overlord company owns the subordinate company, because they're both so huge. I don't even know where they are and who works for them. Somebody that I don't even know who it is, because I can only get an email, get virtual communications if I'm lucky with them by electronic means. And if I call, I get a long menu system in which I have to hand over a whole lot of information to a recorded prompting voice that I never know where that information went. And sometimes I don't get a response back. So a big company, very centralized, not anybody that you can walk right up to and see and communicate with real time. It's not like that. So she just said, stop the centralization, bring it back local again. This is a brilliant lady, in my opinion, Catherine Austin Fitts. Let her go. She's almost done.
Down to, I call it coming clean. Once upon a time, I was in Washington. I was writing a check on my JP Morgan Chase private banking account. And in the meantime, I was engaged in 12 different tracks of litigation, litigating with the people who are trying to engineer the housing bubble. I was trying to stop the housing bubble from happening. And I was writing a check on my JP Morgan Chase personal banking account. I realized, why am I banking at the bank that's doing this criminality, that's destroying communities, that's doing predatory lending? And I said, I need to come clean. I need to stop banking there. So, if tomorrow everybody woke up in America and stopped banking at JP Morgan Chase and said, something, y'all are criminals, we want nothing to do with you, we're out, and went to a local credit union or community bank, it would be a revolution. It would be a total revolution. If 20 women turned to big farm executives and said, something, you're disgusting, no sex, bye, out the door, be a revolution. So we have the power to change this, but we're all going to have to come clean, because almost all of us are complicit in implementing this. It's not them, it's us. The solution is for every one of us to come clean. You're either for the transhumanist slavery system or you're for a human system. But if you're for a human system, then you're going to have to find a way to make money, and engage socially in a human system and stop building a transhuman system. Well, the first thing you have to see is you have to get a good map. In other words, you can't navigate this unless you can see the transhumanist system that is being built and who's building it. But if you're involved with, so let's go back to the pillars, okay? Don't help the military build Operation Warp Speed, okay? Don't help the tech guys figure out how to inject nanoparticles into your body and hook them up to the cloud. Don't help big pharma, make injections which are poisoning American children to death. Don't help big ag grow GMO food that is poisoning America to death. Don't help the government institute corrupt, sort of health crisis regulations that are really disaster capitalism and making the private equity guys and the billionaires rich, and on and on and on. But if you, I'll just be blunt, get the state of our currencies and read it, and you'll know who's doing this. I mean, it's pretty obvious who's doing this.
And there you have it. I couldn't say it better myself. We don't usually plug anybody. We don't play favorites, but I'm going to just suggest to you, go and check out the Solari report. That is Catherine Austin Fitts. It's just about a wrap, TMC. You want to take us out of here?
Yeah, I second that. I've watched a few of her free available interviews and or her affiliates, and it's all very good content. It's very, very good. So Solari report, I like it. So with that, I'll good day, and I'll see you in a week.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good week, and we'll be back and go a little bit further. Thanks, everybody out in the chat, and thank you, Catherine Austin Fitz, for your wonderful work. See you next time.